This is Arkies in the Beltway, a look at national politics and the Arkansans influencing the discussions. I'm Alex Thomas, Washington correspondent for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, reporting from the nation's capital. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Arkies in the Beltway for the week of March 31st, 2024. More money set to come to Arkansas following Congress's approval of the second appropriations package. As discussed on last week's episode, the Senate and House of Representatives approved the $1.2 trillion measure, avoiding a partial shutdown and funding the government through the rest of the fiscal year. Much of the recent package involves support for the Defense Department. This includes nearly $208 million for modernizing Ebbing Air National Guard Base in Fort Smith, so the base can serve as a training site for America's military allies. This money on top of $83 million for construction approved in the first spending package. Senator John Boozman of Rogers securing funding for a variety of projects through congressionally directed spending requests, most of the $97.7 million for healthcare-related efforts, including a new nursing school building at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, supporting women and infant care under the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, and funding for education at the Lyon College School of Oral Health and Dental Medicine. Boozman speaking to the Democrat-Gazette before the Senate's vote on the spending package.
For Arkansas to grow and get off being in a situation where we're number one in things we'd like not to be number one in, it's going to take the educational component and just having the people.
Boozman, a Senate appropriator, he was the only member of the Arkansas congressional delegation with request in this package. Boozman successfully got funding for other projects in the first measure, as did Representatives Rick Crawford of Jonesboro, Steve Womack of Rogers, and Bruce Westerman of Hot Springs. Eyes are already on the next fiscal year, which will start in October. President Joe Biden has submitted a $7.3 trillion budget proposal, which has already received a grilling from some House appropriators. This includes Womack. The Rogers congressman leads the House subcommittee handling financial services and general government operations.
This unsustainable trajectory is one of the greatest threats to American prosperity, also to America's security and future generations. Our nation's debt grows every day. However, President Biden refuses to claw back wasteful spending, as seen by the $7.3 trillion price tag on his requested budget.
Fiscal year 2025 will start October 1st. Senator Tom Cotton of Little Rock sharing details about a recent trip to El Salvador. Cotton traveled to the Central American nation on March 18th, where he got a glimpse of President Nayib Bukele's leadership and campaign to address gang violence. The senator spoke on the Senate floor on March 21st, where he recalled traveling through the capital city of San Salvador.
The images were commonplace, yet extraordinary. Children played soccer in the parks. Young women jogged at twilight. Couples dined outdoors. Commonplace because one should expect to see such scenes in any decent community. Extraordinary because they were unheard of just a few years ago.
The government of El Salvador has attempted to embrace democratic institutions in the decades following the Salvadoran Civil War's end in 1992. Bukele was first elected president in 2019, receiving 53% of the vote over candidates representing the country's two major political parties. Douglas Farah is the president of IBI Consultants, a national security consulting firm specializing in issues involving Latin America. Farah's resume additionally includes covering El Salvador and Central America as a reporter.
The corruption was enormous. The lack of progress in many areas was enormous. So there was a desire for a third way in which Bukele presented himself at. He'd come out of the party of the guerrillas and then moved to the parties of the extreme right.
Once Bukele took office, he implemented his agenda by embracing military intimidation of legislators and increased presence of armed forces.
He has no ideology outside of staying in power for as long as he can.
A key part of Cotton's trip was visiting the Terrorism Confinement Center, a mega prison in the community of Tecoloa. The prison is part of Bukele's campaign to address gang violence. The effort has also included a state of emergency, which has curbed Salvadorans' rights to association and legal counsel. Cotton was the first U.S. official to visit the Terrorism Confinement Center since its January 2023 opening. The senator tells the Democrat-Gazette the best way to stop gang violence is putting members behind bars.
These are not, petty thieves. These are the hardest of the hardcore. And I saw that. I went into prison, and I saw they made the prisoners in these group cells take their T-shirts off, and you could see, the tattoos they had all over them. These are not people that just were swept up and are innocent of these activities.
Bukele's approach to gang violence has raised concerns, however, regarding human rights violations. Human Rights Watch, an international organization tracking human rights issues, has received reports showing a pattern of offenses, including abusive prison conditions and near impossible terms for detainees to defend themselves in criminal proceedings. Juan Papier works for Human Rights Watch as its deputy director on matters involving the Americas.
There is absolutely no due process today in El Salvador. People are arrested because of arbitrary decisions of the police. There are no independent courts. There are very little or few lawyers available to defend them. Some of these people are put on hearings with 300 other detainees, and they have only a few minutes to present their defense. The whole criminal process has been reformed in ways that makes it very difficult for these people to have a chance to make their case in court.
Salvadoran officials have pointed out violent crime has declined during the state of emergency. Papier recognizes this trend, but he contends it has come at the expense of civil liberties.
What we are seeing is a government that turned a country where human rights were seriously threatened by gangs into a country that is increasingly becoming a police state.
Cotton dismisses these concerns on human rights, describing these arguments as overblown. He says the state of emergency order is necessary following years of political instability in El Salvador, adding he believes the Bukele administration is using the order effectively to target gang violence.
If it's a crime to belong to a gang, as it is, and you've got gang tattoos all over your face, what more process is due? What more do you need to have proven in a pretrial detention hearing or a criminal prosecution?
A State Department spokesperson telling the Democrat-Gazette the department is aware of El Salvador's challenges in addressing gang violence, yet every government must ensure safety while protecting citizens' rights. The spokesperson adding the Salvadoran government should review cases and release any prisoners found to be unjustly detained. A reminder, Congress is away from Capitol Hill until the week of April 8th. Once the Senate returns, House Speaker Mike Johnson plans to send 2 articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas to Congress's upper chamber. All 4 of Arkansas's House members supported impeaching Mayorkas in February over the Biden administration's handling of security at the U.S.-Mexico border. And that'll do it for this edition of Arkies in the Beltway for the week of March 31st, 2024. You can stay up to date with all news involving Arkansas at arkansasonline.com. You can get in touch with me on social media. My handle is @AlexHouseThomas. Special thanks to the team down in Little Rock. I'm Alex Thomas, and this has been Arkies in the Beltway. Thanks for listening.